Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. This is going to be a very controversial pick, and I can already see people in the comments explaining to me about Varg, and I know about Varg. I'm aware of his beliefs, what he stands behind, what he's called himself in the past, how he's changed what he calls himself, and the actions that he's done. But it is my belief that we can engage with music. And if it's not great, we can call it out. I also believe that music is an art form. I certainly believe that when the messages in music line up with something that someone does, we can view it less as artistic interpretation of said idea and more of a manifesto of sorts, in which case, again, we can call it out if that's the problem. I don't know what the song is going to be addressing ahead of us. I have taken a small glance at the lyrics, and I am pretty sure I'm going to have some strong words to say about it. But by no means does this act as any sort of condonement of Varg or Burzum or the ideals that are going to be presented to us in the music. This is also not a dog whistle to say that this is a safe place for anybody who agrees with what Varg or this song are going to be talking about. As usual, this is a very open-minded place for intellectual conversation and loving your neighbor. I don't think I've ever explicitly said that. I've never felt the need to explicitly say that. We are a pretty good community here. We haven't really had anybody try to do anything stupid, but this is not a community for people who hate humanity, hate specific races, genders, sexualities, anything. I do not allow hate in the community, and I have no problem blocking people immediately from YouTube, Discord, Twitter, what have you. Patreon, I don't care. I do not support it. I do not condone it. But I do think we can still engage with the artwork and not turn into a place that accepts people who might follow in the footsteps of the artwork. That's where we're going today. With that said, I do fully understand if you do not want to watch this video. You've made it this far, 3 minutes in, you've heard why I'm going to allow this song on the channel, and you're like, you know what, I don't support that. That's fine, 100%. Duck out now and, go on with your life. And if you feel like this is something that you need to unsubscribe to me from or whatever, I suppose that is fine too. I can't stop you. But I do believe we can engage with art both positive and negative and call it out when necessary. I don't believe that sweeping things under the rug and ignoring them is the way to go about it. All that does is leave positive views of said artwork as the only voice that is being spoken about said artwork. And I believe that if nobody else is going to talk about this track and speak about how it is not a great mindset or that it's not something to be supported, I need to be at least one of those voices so that somebody can come across a condemnment of this thing right here. So again, you do what you feel you need to do. I'm, as usual, being transparent about my intentions and approaching this as critically as I can. Like I said, I understand it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, and some people are ready to turn the video off just from it being one of Varg's projects, and I understand, I do. So with that said, let's get into Burzum's My Journey to the Stars and see what this track is bringing to us today. as usual with lo-fi black metal. Very staticky. Tremolo picking. Dark, heavy, very weighty. Interesting. It's kind of bright melodically. And the drums are giving it a bit more of a punk vibe than an oppressive one. Despite it being a bit compressed, the guitar work is actually very clear. Right back into this idea. The vocals are very interestingly crafted and produced. Definitely can't say I'm enjoying it. It's definitely a punkier type of black metal. Very flat production on the drums, which makes sense given the genre. Is there any bass on this? The left guitar, I guess, could be a bass with a lot of distortion on it, but I don't think so. Interesting ending there. It's abrupt, but it's a delayed abruption. One of the guitars cuts out before the other. So what we're going to do is something a little different than usual. We are going to start with the lyrics, which is not normally how I conduct the channel, but I think this is the most important part of the track. And I'm sure black metal enthusiasts will disagree with me on that. A lot of black metal tends to push the vocals down into the mix to sort of turn them into a texture, another instrument in the sounds. And to me, I kind of get the idea that it's to take the spotlight away from them, to reduce their importance. But for this track in particular, I think it's important to kind of get a grasp of what's going on here. Lyrically, it is quite condensed. We have 7 stanzas, most of them sitting between 2 and 3 lines each. And some of these lines are extremely short. The first stanza just says, "I immaterialize and slowly drift into the unknown." The next one says, "With the cold hands, with soul, the wintry plains lie untouched. I ride on the elements toward the stars unseen, a quest for knowledge in the astral." So it seems that this character is passed on to the next plane of existence. They've died. They immaterialized, which is an interesting way to go about saying that, and they drift into the unknown, right? But they're still on a quest for knowledge in the astral. I'm going to assume that's the astral plane. It says, "Luminous stench intensifies as I near a spectral sphere. After 100 men's lifetimes in analyzing, I learn to consume the sphere of intense power and to become immortal." So he spent his mortal days learning about this sphere that existed on the other side of existence. And he learned how to control it, or as he says, to consume it. "Darkness, hate, and winter rules the earth when I return." So he becomes immortal, comes back to the mortal plane, brings darkness, hate, and winter with him. Says, "War between races, a goal is reached, chaos, hate." Lyrically, this song is about devoting one's life to finding the power of immortality to spread their hatred. And we've had songs that have not had great messages to them in the past. And typically, I read them artistically. I think art is a fantastic medium to explore some of humankind's darker elements. But there's definitely a fine line that gets drawn. When does it stop becoming art and when does it become an ideology? And I think the line there is really in action, right? Whether it's something someone says, or something someone does, or something someone professes to believe, it is when this no longer becomes what could be said as a morbid curiosity, something to explore through art, and when the art becomes a way to represent one's own beliefs. And I think this kind of leans into that area based on things that Varg has said and done in the past. And in that way, it becomes less of art to me. I can no longer appreciate this on an artistic level because it seems to be more of a goal. A war between races and ensuing that everybody hates each other and creates chaos kind of seems in line with what Varg would intend for the world if he could have that control. So it's difficult to speak about this song without bringing this up because it becomes a political song at this point. And if I didn't lose you in the first 3 minutes, I've probably lost you now. But it becomes a bit more of a manifesto. And it professes a worldview, basically, instead of an exploration of an idea. And sometimes they do get a little bit blurry. It's not an extremely black and white situation, which makes doing analyses like this a bit difficult because you can never really be certain where things lie. This is the first time on the channel, I think, where it's been very clear to me where this lies, whether it's an artistic expression or an expression in art. And I think because of that, because this is not saying, hey, what would it be like to create a character who is driven to sow chaos, and more so of this is what I would do if I could obtain this power, it makes it difficult for me to speak about it in any positive light. Some people can separate the art from the artists, and I can to an extent. Like I said, it's when I stop viewing it as art, though, it becomes the artist, at least in my perspective. So when I listen to this song, it's really difficult for me to hear any art in it. It is instead more of a confession, a confession of one's ideals, and it demands almost a rebuttal. In which case, I can't just say this is what the lyrics are about, this is what the themes of the lyrics are about, like I normally do. I have to say that this song is literally calling for something. In this case, for hate, for chaos, for race wars. And I have to openly condemn that. I can't just let that go on and say this is an artistic representation of that. This is somebody exploring a darker part of humanity. No, this is somebody saying that this is what they want. Or at least that's how I'm interpreting it. And so I'm going to reiterate what I said at the beginning of this video. I have to openly condemn this. This is not something that I'm going to support in the community. This is not something that I'm going to allow to even begin to blossom. I believe we can all have open conversation about this stuff, about the music. I should be very clear about that. We can have open conversation about the music, but there is no open conversation about sowing hate, sowing chaos, and especially hating people or hoping that people fight each other based on ridiculous notions like skin color, race, sexuality, religion, any of it. I will not tolerate a single bit of it in the comments, Discord, Twitter, what have you. I mentioned it at the beginning. I stand by it. This is not something to have discussions about. And with that said, it makes it difficult to even listen to some of the rest of the music just because I have such a disdain for the lyrical themes that are presented here. And that does kind of suck because musically, I kind of dig it. It's black metal, but it's not black metal. It has the production of black metal, the compression, the tremolo picking, the melodic elements that we've seen in some more atmospheric black metal like Agalloch. But it's also presented in a sort of punk format. The drumming is not blast beats. We do have some double bass kicks occasionally, but it's also just somewhat super punky, so the melodic aspect kind of feels more punk than atmospheric black metal. But the biggest turnoff for me is going to be the vocals. Longtime listeners, longtime viewers, you guys know I'm not real big on extreme metal harshes, and this definitely falls in line with that. Interestingly, it almost sounds like the person is in pain with these types of screams, and I think that kind of works thematically with someone passing on to the next plane, dying and moving to the next type of existence. I can't assume that that would be a painless experience. The end of the track, though, doesn't really fit along with that, so it just kind of goes into that's the style of music they make, and there isn't any thematic cohesion there. But, I'm sure there's other melodic, atmospheric black metal out there that I could find that is in a similar vein that I could enjoy more lyrically. So, I think that kind of touches on everything. I know I didn't really dive deep into the music. I did talk quite a bit during the reaction, and I think I touched on everything just now as well. The vocals, the production, the guitar work, and the drumming style. There really isn't much of a bass in here, and the structure is rather linear. Not linear, repetitive. For having a linear set of lyrics like this, it's interesting that the music kind of just goes in circles. There were a couple of sections that felt unique, but overall, it was just a lot of the same ideas over and over. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Burzum's My Journey to the Stars. This is where you guys come in. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you thought of this track. If there's anything that stood out to you, if there's anything that you disagreed with me on, anything that you wanted to expand on that I stated, go ahead and drop those comments down there. I'm going to iterate for the third time. All discussion must be tasteful and open-minded. In that order. We must start from a place of reverence and respect for those around us, our fellow humans, and that, if you can fall in line with that, responses should be open-minded. But there is no need to be open-minded to hate. I will not tolerate that in the comments. I hope 3 times is enough here. Something tells me I'm going to have to bring out the band hammer a lot on this video, but we'll see. I may end up just locking the comments all together after a while. I don't know. We'll see. I've never had to do anything like that before, but I do understand this is a controversial video, so we're going into untreaded ground here. I will react accordingly, is what I'm saying. And I know that sounds harsh, but I firmly believe that this community needs to stay the way it is. and I will do what I need to protect the community while also engaging with music of all kinds. All right. That wraps it up for today. Let me know in the comments. As usual, like, subscribe, ring the bell. Links are in the description box. We will be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, with more not rock and metal and another special selection. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.